Okay, this is the wall mount tree-zle. It is currently, as you can see, mounted onto a tree. And of course, it is kind of an X-brace design back here that adjusts to the relevant proportions. That, as we can see, it's kind of works like a wall-mounted TV. It can, mount onto a tree. So we have the X brackets here. These are, this is a mock-up made of curtain rods. I do not have a metal fabrication warehouse, so my options are limited. But we have the adjustable ball-style ball and socket joint, which is similar to what one finds on many camera tripods. But I kind of, engineered this one myself, if you can call it that. And the idea, of course, is that it adjusts to whatever you need it to be by wing nuts or whatever. And of course, the finished product, once developed commercially, would be much easier to operate. This is, like I said, a very simple mock-up, and the idea is that the telescoping sections will be 3 or 4 or 5, depending on what you're trying to do, whether it's the Tree-zel Lite or the Tree-zel Pro, trying to have them about that long. And this whole, I might as well take this off so it doesn't cause problems. The idea here is that it can, this whole thing, instead of a 3-inch proportion, would be at the 1/2-inch proportion, kind of like a arm-mounted TV mount, or like monitor mount or whatever. It's a wall mount, and this thing right here is currently held on by a piece of twine and a backpack strap, but the same concept would apply, except it would be 2 backpack style straps. I just didn't have a second backpack to mutilate. But the idea, I believe, is solid, and the best, of course, like this thing would also mount onto a wall. You have a couple of brackets screwed into the stud, and it just would clip on them, much in the same way as, or even that part could do that. That's irrelevant. It could work out one of either way. But rather than have separate components to clip it to a tree or clip it to a wall, might as well have it all be one. And, and of course, if it were to come with a tripod, of course this section would be much shorter. This paper towel zip tied to the fence illustrates the simplicity of that. You lock it in, kind of do the same wing nut action, and you have, of course this is, I don't know if I illustrated this already, but the idea is it fits whatever canvas you need it to. If it needs to get bigger, it'll get bigger. And these, of course, would lock in, but since, like I said, it is made from curtain rods, I do not have the luxury of a metal fabrication shop, which is why I am putting this on Kickstarter to get this funded to fund an actual prototype by an actual company that does these things. I've got one in mind locally that the word is it would cost anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000, maybe a little less, to get this thing to where it, yeah, this is not working, paper towels are falling over, but the idea remains that it will hold whatever painting you want to the wall. I was inspired by the fact that I live in about an 8x12 room and I don't have much space to move, so if I set up a tripod easel, it takes up way too much room. So, you have this guy out when you're trying to work on it, and retract it against the wall when you want it the heck out of the way. So, obviously some kinks to work out here, but these things are sold. I just did not buy one. And I'm sure, your standard telescoping tripod has been public domain for several decades, so I imagine that is not something I have to worry about with patents. And part of the idea, of course, is that this collapses into, and once again, just like this part, you could have 3 different sections on these, and yeah, so that's kind of, they don't really make tapering aluminum rods, so I think it would be easier to just do it that way. I realized that once I actually started making the mock-up, and there are many different options for ball joints where you have, the single, or you have the kind of like a little twisting action cup on a ball. That in itself could be a patent, but anyway, there are numerous options here, and I think it's a worthwhile endeavor to pursue.